what is the average cost of a wedding? You've been doing this 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
What, in your professional opinion, what is the average cost? If I was getting married, I said, Michelle, I'm ready to do this for the last time. Okay. What budget would you recommend for me? I know that's probably like such a
Ah.
question, but I mean,
Mm.
what do I need to be working with?
Well, do you have champagne taste on a beer budget?
Ah,
Or no, I would say 40 grand.
mm. All right, I want to welcome everybody to another episode, the Wedding Workshop Podcast. I'm your host, Gene, the wedding coach. I'm super excited to have Michelle Myers from Michelle's Main Events. On this podcast, we focus on helping engaged couples plan a fun, entertaining, most importantly, stress-free wedding. We're coming into a new season, and I wanted to get Michelle on here. She will be a frequent guest whenever it comes to anything wedding planning. She is my go-to. So, Michelle, for the people that don't know, if you will give them a brief explanation of who you are and what it is that you do, and we will dive right in.
All right. Thanks, Jean. So my name is Michelle Myers. Like you said, I own Michelle's Main Event. We are professional wedding coordinators. We have 3 packages, something to fit every budget. So we can plan with you just the month before your wedding and kind of pull it all together, or we can plan for a year or more. So we do full planning, partial planning, and everything in between. All of our packages are customizable too.
Well,
I have a team of coordinators and I'm one of them, and we love everything wedding.
so
Thanks for having me.
absolutely. Michelle, it's so great to have you on here, and it's great to talk to you. And it's amazing to see you've grown in the past couple of years. I think I first met you, I think we did a wedding at Faithbrook years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Years ago. And that was our first interaction. And ever since that wedding, I think that we've stayed in touch. I mean, this is how the wedding industry works. You work with somebody, you work with vendors that go above and beyond. You see that, you notice that, and you want to stay in touch with them. So
Yes.
and I'm glad that you're coming upon your 10-year anniversary. Congratulations on that. um
Yay, thank you.
Absolutely. So the topic of the show today is planning or budgeting for your wedding in 2024. I've got several
Mhm.
questions for you. Not too many though, because we're not going to be on here too long. But I
Yeah.
want to start off. You have an amazing event coming up, January 28th. Um,
Yes, the Bridal
it's the
Expo.
Bridal
Hmm.
Expo. So let's just start it off with the Bridal Expo. Just go in, let them know all about the event, what time it is, what venue it's at, and how they can register.
Okay, so the Winchester Bridal Expo will be on Sunday, January 28th, 2024. The time frame is 1 to 4 p.m. It is at Backseat Events in Winchester. It's a very large music and entertainment venue, the largest in the tri-state area,
Wow.
according to their advertising. New this year, we have a VIP ticket where guests can have early access at 12:30, and they can have a brunch, a catered brunch and mimosa bar by Six Star Events.
Mm.
And the mimosa bar is by Backseat Events, where the event is. So that's at 12:30. And then general admission is from 1 to 4. And near the end of the show, we are going to have a fashion show. And Raised on Analog band will be playing during our fashion show for the Rockin' Runway.
So Michelle, is this your first? So you do these events all the time. You put on amazing bridal shows. I try to come to all of them. I love to come to your
Mhm.
shows. And the reason I like to come to your shows, let me just put that out there, because they're intimate, right?
Mhm.
Get an opportunity to get quality time with a lot of the couples that come to my booth, right? Not to say
Mm.
there's anything
Right.
wrong with the larger events,
Mhm.
I just feel like your events, I really do get that opportunity to have the one-on-one time with the couples. But is this your first time doing a fashion show at one of your bridal shows?
Well, we've changed it every year. It depends on the venue and the space and what the venue really allows. We've had a runway in the past.
Mhm.
It's usually difficult for all of the guests to see the runway because it's crowded. There's usually a large crowd at the shows. I mean, not as large as some of the big shows, but there's usually between 150 to 300 people. And so when they're all kind of crowding the aisle trying to see the runway, um, it's been challenging. So then we kind of adjusted it where we had more of a display of fashions. So the girls would be either on a stage or in a certain section, and people could almost look at them like a window in the mall, you know, where you would walk by and see the display. And that's worked really well, but I've missed the runway.
Mm.
And in this venue, it's so big. So it'll be perfect to have a runway down the center. And also there's a mezzanine, a second floor where people can, I mean, normally they would go up there and chill if they're listening to music and listening to the band. So so seeing shouldn't be a problem. So we're really excited to bring back the runway.
All right, awesome, awesome. So let's get into the topic for today, and that is
Okay.
budgeting for 2024. And I'm just gonna put this out there. I think going to a bridal show is a great way to budget for your wedding because you're gonna have vendors there that are going to be giving out discounts and coupons. I'm letting you know right now, I give away a $500 gift certificate at all
Mhm.
shows. Oh, and by the way, if you're a bride, or if you're a couple working with Michelle and you contact me, you automatically get $200 off. I'm just gonna plug that in there as well. That's
I
why,
love that.
but
Yes.
you know, you're that's why it's good to hire a planner, right? Because the planner is gonna
Right.
do the hookup. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Yes.
So,
Hmm.
Michelle, first question I have for you, right? So, with your expertise in wedding planning, what are the most significant changes or trends you're seeing in wedding budgeting coming into 2024? And how should couples really adapt to these changes?
Okay. So the biggest thing I've seen is an increase in just about everyone. Every vendor. It seems like there's just been such a huge budget increase. I mean, there's an increase in everything, food, rentals, all the things. So I have found that some of my fancy spreadsheets and things that I use to kind of guide and help couples prior to this coming year begin to be on the lower end. And I mean, I certainly don't want anyone to run out of money. So I had to really tweak a lot of my documents that I use to guide couples to help with the increase. And that's a tough conversation with clients because I mean, budget now, my most common budgets are anywhere between 27,000, 30,000 to 45, 50,000. So that's a big range. And when they approach me early in the process, the planner is one of the first vendors often hired. So I'm often helping them from the beginning. And if they say they have a budget of say 10,000, I'm automatically like, this is going to be tough. I mean, not that we can't do it, but it's just going to be really tough. And we have to have a lot of those real conversations. So the increase is the main thing that I've seen. Another is a higher guest count. You know,
Mm.
now that we are able to have more guests since the restrictions have all lifted, a lot of people are calling with say 150 to 200 person weddings where that wasn't the case for a while, and that presents budget challenges but also even venue challenges. A lot of our local venues don't really accommodate much more than 200, or 200 be really tight. So um, And when you lower your guest count, that helps with your budget. So those two kind of go hand in hand with the increase in pricing and also the increase in guest count.
So I just want to piggyback on two things that you said. So just to be clear, you're in the Virginia Winchester market, right? So I know
Yes, correct.
different markets have different price points. I believe I'm just gonna call it the DMV market, which is Virginia, Maryland, and DC.
Uh-huh.
In your professional opinion, what is the average cost of a wedding? You've been doing this 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
What, in your professional opinion, what is the average cost? If I was getting married, I said, Michelle, I'm ready to do this for the last time. Okay. What budget would you recommend for me? I know that's probably like such a
Ah.
question, but I mean,
Mm.
what do I need to be working with?
Well, do you have champagne taste on a beer budget
Ah,
or no, I would say 40 grand.
mm, comfortably.
If you want, so I usually start with my couples with that. I think I've mentioned this to you before, the top five exercise, the
Let's do it
top
again,
five
though. Let's do it
exercise.
again.
Okay. So I sit down with the couples and I have them separately first. Like the bride will create her top five priorities for her wedding day. What are the things that matter the most to her? Is it food? Is it the party? Is it the music? What is most important? Having all of her friends and family, the number. And so she makes her list. And then separately, the groom makes his list of what things are the five things most important to him. And then the two of them come together and share their lists and together create a top five list as a couple. So usually that means that some items need to be eliminated from his or her list to get five in common. But it kind of helps spark some conversation that sometimes doesn't happen otherwise. And it also, helps them both get to voice what's really, really important. And then it helps me learn what matters the most to them. So I'm really taking note of all of the priorities of hers, of his, of theirs together, so that when I'm doing my matchmaking, my vendor matchmaking, and one price point might be higher than another price point with the same vendor category. If I know something is really, really important, then I can help kind of sell, well, this is really worth it because let's say he said music and the party was the most important thing. So we're not looking for a DJ that's just $500 just starting out to save money. We want to go ahead and maybe splurge or spend the standard in that category because that's a very, very important thing. And then there might be other things that we can eliminate, maybe a photo booth or maybe some after party things, or maybe, there's I mean, of
Favor.
course, the sky's the limit. I've seen brides go crazy with signage and everything else, but it's just, I keep honing back to what's most important. And then one of the first documents that we create together is the vendor list. And so usually when they see my template, we can kind of eliminate some right off the bat if they don't want certain things. Maybe they have an aunt who does flowers and is helping them out by doing all of the centerpieces. And we know that's a vendor that we can eliminate then. We kind of start determining costs. I give them an approximation for each vendor rather than like a grand total. Usually we kind of sit down and do the priority exercise first, and then kind of look at how many vendors we're looking for. And I kind of give them a range. So if you want, let's just say we pick out 9 vendors that are most important to us. Each one is going to cost between $3,000 and $5,000. So you multiply that times 9, and that gives you that number of 27 grand and the top end of 45. So then you have to start eliminating vendors that you want, or you just add kind of a column to the vendor list and start noting this one, I'm under budget because this one was only 2 grand. So now I have this extra amount in my budget to play with. And so I usually guide them that way rather than an overall total, because the overall total is a little scary.
Sure. Sure. And I will say that, you know, in talking to some couples, right? Every time I have a conversation with a couple, first question I ask is, do you have a planner? And I will say it's 50-50. And I just want to put
Yeah.
this out there to the wedding industry, the wedding community, all of my engaged couples. If you want to save money, your first investment should be a planner. And I'm going to tell you why. Because Michelle knows all the vendors. Okay? You don't know
Yeah.
the vendors. She knows the vendors. She knows the price points. And like I said earlier in the interview, if a
Mhm.
bride contacts me and says I was referred by Michelle, automatically they're getting a discount. So
Yeah.
you're say, oh, I don't want to pay, I don't know, $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 for a plan, when in reality, not only are you saving money, you're saving time. You can't even put a price point on stress when it comes to planning a wedding. So
Right.
you want to save money, right? I'm just going to throw it out there. Your first vendor, before you even, I mean, you could be thinking about your dress and your ring and the venue, right? Like, I know those things you're thinking about, but you really, really need to be thinking about who your planner is going to be. And there are several different planners out there, but we're not going to get into that. That's not the topic of the show. Um, I also want to piggyback on something else you said. So with the 40 grand, right? We're just gonna use that as
Mhm.
with the 40 grand. Can you break down? I know it'll probably be difficult to break down in percentages, but I would imagine you've got
Mm.
your venue, you've got your
Mhm.
catering, your photography, right? So I don't know if you can break it down percentage wise, right? So what percentage of let's just do the top five, right? Your top five vendors, and what
Mhm.
percentage of your budget would you recommend?
That's a tough one. I usually just double one. Like, so I say, okay, every vendor is $3,000 to $5,000.
Mhm.
So let's say you have a venue who offers something else, like other than just the venue rental, the space. Maybe they offer tables and chairs, or maybe they offer food, or maybe they, whatever, however many things they offer, then we double that. Then the venue shouldn't be 3 to 5 thousand, it should be 6 to 10 thousand. And so I guess that's then, I mean, it could be about a fourth, it could be about 25% of the budget, could be a little less than that. So I don't like to do that either, because they all include different things. Same thing really with catering. Catering often is a double fee, a higher percentage of your budget, because many of my caterers also handle the rentals, and
Mhm.
many of my caterers also handle staffing.
And what
So
about the
you've got
bar?
your,
That included as
yeah,
well.
it includes the bartenders, but not the alcohol itself, usually.
So
So,
Michelle, I don't mean to cut you off.
no, no,
Um, let's talk real quick about the bar situation, okay?
no.
Because I
Mm-hmm.
know that can definitely change your budget. Open bar,
Mm-hmm.
beer and wine, full bar, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what would you so most venues are not going to allow you to bring in, or they're not going to provide alcohol for you. You have to find a vendor that has the licensing to bring in the alcohol. Is that correct?
So most of the time, the client incurs the cost for the ABC license.
Mhm.
They often do bring the alcohol, and the caterer has to serve it. Like, it can never be just a take your own.
Don't want no
I've,
problems.
yeah. Right. I've had clients ask, like, can't we just kind of, save the money on the bartender and just set up a cooler and or like a keg and just help yourself? And that's definitely, not allowed. So most of the venues where I frequent, that if they don't provide the in-house food and bar, the client drops off the alcohol the day before, and then someone is paid to serve it, and then they incur the cost of the 1 day liquor license.
Okay. All right. So those were my two piggyback questions.
Okay.
You already answered the second question. So I'm going to go to the third one, which what are some commonly overlooked or unexpected costs in wedding planning?
Mm.
What are your tips for couples to handle these surprises without going over budget? Now, before you answer this, um, in doing some research, right, they asked thousands of couples, like, what was the biggest mistake you've made at your wedding? Number one was, we didn't budget enough for it. So with that,
Mm.
what are some overlooked expenses, and how can couples avoid those?
So I would say that there's a lot of fine print in contracts sometimes that couples miss when they are booking their venue or other vendors. And then by the time we're at the wedding day, sometimes those things have been overlooked and it ends up costing them a lot of extra money. It could be fees like setup and breakdown of tables and chairs. It could be delivery times. So maybe the venue had stated that everything needs to be off premises by midnight. While most rental companies don't return on Saturday night at midnight to get items. So it's there until Monday. So then sometimes there's a fee for the rental company to come back, or there could be a fee that the venue charges because they have to move it because they have a wedding on Sunday and they told you you had to have it out. So one of the things that's included in our service is reviewing the contracts for the client, as long as they're willing to share them with us, and we say we're not looking at anything in here except the fine print in order to help you. I'm not going to say they don't read them. I know they read them, but when you're signing contracts, there's probably so many things on their mind. They just sometimes miss those details. So that's one of the things your planner will help you do, is cover all those details. And we do look for things like the setup. Who is setting up the tables and chairs? When can that be done? Some venues don't allow clients on premises the day before. What's your access time to the venue? What's your departure time need to be? And even so, aside from the venue itself, some of the other vendors, just a photography, for example, they have tight time frames. So, they'll have this, let's say an 8-hour window is very common for photographers to have an 8-hour service time. And the bride mentions that she wants to capture getting ready. She has matching robes for all of her girls, and she wants to do champagne pops and all this to be captured. So the photographer's starting then at, let's just say 10 a.m. So then that means if she only has an 8-hour window, the photographer needs to leave at 6. And we know timeline wise, that doesn't work.
You didn't even get to the cake yet. Come on.
So that's something else that we do as your planner with creating that timeline, is making sure that all of the vendors are going to be able to be there when they need to be there and to capture everything and for setup and for takedown. But anyway, those are sometimes the missed costs, because if they say, well, our photographer is leaving at 6, but we need her there at 8. Well, she charges X amount for each hour of overtime. So
Yeah.
it's not really a hidden cost, but just sometimes something that's missed. So
And it's
we
the same
try to
with
help.
DJs. I would say the same thing. Like
Mhm.
I was doing a wedding, and we were running late, surprise. And it's like 10 o'clock, we're supposed to shut down. So 9:30, they're like, Gene, can you stay an extra hour? I'm like,
Mhm.
absolutely. But per my contract, it's going to be $200 for me to stay extra.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So those are the things that you want to consider. But I'm curious, is there anything, without sharing any names? I mean, have you encountered? What are some of the you personally, in working with some of the weddings, have you encountered some unforeseen expenses from your couples?
Um, yes. So, a lot of time I am a stickler for starting on time.
Sure.
However, there are always special circumstances where I have had to kind of pivot for one reason or another, whether that be weather or a very important grandparent or person not there yet that we are waiting for.
Or the shuttle gets
And
lost. You can't control that, right?
exactly. Yeah. I mean, there are always elements that are out of my circle of control and that you just problem solve in the moment. So, but when that happens, it's such a domino effect for
Oh,
so many others involved.
yes.
So oftentimes my couples will have a DJ for their reception, but sometimes they have a harpist or a violinist or a musician for the ceremony, and they're out there playing the prelude music. And so if we're postponing, then we're adding time
Sure.
for them, and that's adding a charge. So I have had clients that were disappointed that, say, the musician charged extra because of this element that's, say, out of our control. Yes, but we made the decision to prolong the music and they charge per their contract. So, um, again, and I'm usually familiar with that. And in the moment, everyone's like, yeah. But then afterwards,
That
it does
invoice. And
change the budget. And then there were other instances where that happened because of weather, and making choices of moving location or waiting a bit. And then in waiting a bit, maybe a vendor can't wait a bit. It's often tied to that musician because they're coming for a job for usually an hour and then leaving.
right.
And they'll book gigs back to back. So they're not going to be late for another one just because you postponed yours.
And
Um,
and weddings are very fluid, right?
mhm,
Like,
mhm.
things can change on a dime. The weather.
Yes.
I remember we did a wedding. It wasn't at a barn. I think it was a barn, and it rained and it
Mhm.
pushed everything back. Right?
Yeah.
We still got it done.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
there's certain things that I love the way you framed it, right? Like there's just certain things I can't control. We can't control the weather, right? We could plan the
Right.
best we want for it, but I just think it's important for couples to know, like, weddings are very fluid. I was doing a wedding during the summer, and the planner came. She said, "Gene, it's time to cut the cake." I said, "Whoa, whoa, that's not on the script. Not time to." Like, Gene, look at the cake. I look at the cake is leaning. The ice
No,
I
see.
was leaning. I said, okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, please make your way over to the cake table, right? Things
Hmm.
like this happen, or right, day before,
Yeah.
somebody can't show up, right? So now
Yeah.
the the wedding party intro was changed up because this person couldn't make it. Weddings are very, very fluid. But I'm pretty sure you shared this with all your couples, Michelle. All right, so our next question. So many couples want their wedding to be unique and personal. What are your creative suggestions for adding personal touches to the wedding without significantly inflating the budget?
Let's see. I've had a lot of pets lately,
Really? That's a
making
trend?
things.
The pets is a trend thing. Okay.
Yes, we had a lot of pets in 2023. And I mean, that really doesn't cost anything extra. It's a little bit of extra work because it's kind of like having the 3-year-old ring bearer that you really don't know. Are they gonna walk? What are they gonna do? So it has some different challenges, but doesn't really cost a lot more. But in addition to having the pets, if they don't want to have them, I've had couples create cardboard cutouts of their pets and have them present. I've had them have something at each and every seat with a photo of the pet and kind of a note, like, a special note, like, thank you for being here for our humans. Like it's a note kind of from the pets. It's really cute. And those they make on Canva and have printed. It's pretty inexpensive. Um, I've seen a lot of unique things done with table numbers of all things. Where you can frame a document that you might print. Maybe it's a photo of somewhere the couple has been. Like one couple, I think they really liked going to Charleston, South Carolina. So they had different homes on, I think it's called Rainbow Road. And anyway, they all had a special meaning. So this table was the pink house, and they had a picture of it. And a lot of the people seated at the table were associated with that memory. So that was very inexpensive and very unique. But basically, just that, again, kind of going back to that top priority exercise, just in hearing them talk about their priorities really helps me to build a relationship with them and helps me to learn a lot about them, that I can then make some of these suggestions, or call their attention to something that they've mentioned that's important that they could incorporate. And that's one of the things I love about the long-term packages, when I work with you for a whole year and have all that time to get to know you and think about those things.
Well, Michelle, I definitely think we need to have a part two in a few weeks where we talk
Yeah.
about different packages.
Okay.
And when you're, because I think a lot of times when people think about a planner, like, there's so many different planners in the industry, just like there's many different DJs, right? So you can get a day of, which is really not a day of, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. You just can't show up and make
No.
it happen, right? But I know
Right.
some planners do the day of. You have like the 6 months and then you have the year. So I would
Mhm.
definitely love to talk to you about that a little bit more.
Okay.
So my next question for you is so for couples working with a tight budget, tight, what essential advice would you give them to still have a beautiful and memorable wedding day?
I would say to think more of an intimate group, maybe a
Mhm.
size.
So what you're saying is cutting your guest list down is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying. Yes. It's the most impactful way to tighten up your budget. I would say a lot of people think that having, say, a backyard wedding or a wedding at home is a huge money saver. And I disagree on that. I think that oftentimes adds more expense because you're bringing more things in and making a venue out of your backyard. So in the weddings that I've done, that it hasn't been a money saver. It's usually cost a little bit more, I think, than having it at a venue that has more things included. So I wouldn't say that. I would definitely say a more intimate number, and also just to really prioritize, to really have those conversations and prioritize. I had my dream wedding when I got married. It was a while ago, almost 20 years ago, but I remember having conversations with my parents who helped contribute a lot to my wedding. And
So they were
I remember,
sponsors. All those
yeah. I remember talking about all the things that I wanted, and my mom pretty much saying, you can have the silky pretty linens or the chocolate fountain. You one or the other, but not both. Like, you need to make these choices and prioritize, and or you pay for it. um but something else too, that the chocolate fountain reminded me of, I don't know, I'm originally from the Pittsburgh area. Have you ever seen the Pittsburgh cookie tables, Jean?
um,
No?
you got to send me a photo.
Okay, but it's massive, but the whole family contributes to
Oh,
baking all of these cookies. There's thousands of cookies, but that's something else that makes it unique and special when your family actually contributes things that then saves you money. So that was one of the other questions. That was one of the things I wanted to share. I kind of forgot,
well,
but
I want to piggyback on that because that's important, right? So, what are
mhm.
your thoughts? Because a lot of people will say, okay, you know what? We're on a tight budget. I'm gonna get my mom to be the planner. I'm gonna get Auntie to take the photos. I got a cousin that's a DJ. Okay, I got a friend that plays the harp. Okay, what is your recommendation when it comes to hiring friends or family members as vendors at your wedding? I know that wasn't in my notes, but I just
Yeah, so I really depend on my vendor village. That's what I call it. It can be called a preferred list. It can be called a vendor village. Call it what you want. But I really encourage the hiring of professionals for those professional duties. And I do have some scenarios and stories that I can share with clients when we're in that moment of situations kind of gone wrong with friends as vendors.
mhm.
I just especially with DJs, I will encourage hiring a professional DJ over and over and over again. And usually, I feel like once we kind of talk through it a little bit more, my clients are very open and understanding to realizing the scope of what a professional DJ does. They'll say, "Oh, we're just gonna bring our big speaker and play music." I'm like, well, your DJ does so much more than that. They're your MC. They get your party going. I mean, Jean, you are like the most charismatic one that I've worked with. Seriously. And it's just such an important vibe, that pushing play on an iPod just doesn't do it. And then I don't manage that either. So then I'm like, whose job is that? Because if it's not a vendor that we're paying, then essentially I feel like it is my job, and I don't want anything to do with that. That's your job, Jean. I'm like, I'm not the one who is on the mic getting the party going and telling everyone what time, what they need to do. And we need to hire a professional for that. So I usually advise against it, but there are some roles like making cookies or some special moments that we can certainly involve family and friends. I encourage that. But the professional duties leave to the professionals.
I'll share a story with you, Michelle. I was at a wedding sometime this year, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I get there, I'm talking to the planner, I'm set up, everything is good to go. We get through the wedding party intro, we get through the dances, and it's dinner time. This planner comes up to me. She says, Gene, I want to let you know that I'm not getting paid for this event. I am a family member, and now you're taking over. Can't make this up. Okay. I'm like, all right, no problem. Now, I will say, you know how I work. I'm very like, I do a timeline. Not really time. I'm really more like a flow person. Like, okay, we're gonna be doing this, and then we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do this. What time it happens, right? Is what time it
Yeah.
happens. Right? So I had to run the event. I had to run the event right after the special day, right after dinner. It was like I had no planner. It was okay, right? I've been doing this a long time, but I would imagine, somebody that doesn't have that much experience, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
somebody that may need the assistance of a planner. I can't tell. Once again, I think the first vendor you should hire is a planner. Okay. And so events still went well. I'm just making that comment because, when you say you should hire professionals it's almost like saying, okay, I'm going into surgery, right? Like this is one of the biggest days of your lives, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you got a court case coming up, okay, like you want a professional, right? You want somebody that knows
Right.
what they're doing, right? If you're going in for surgery, it's the same. Matter of fact, you're investing all of this time, effort, and energy in the biggest, and you cannot hit the reset button. There's no
Mm.
start over. There's
That's
one time
right.
to get it right. So I
Yeah.
100% agree with you. I encourage don't just hire vendors, hire professional wedding vendors, right?
Mm-hmm.
In
Oh yeah.
every category I'll leave the venues out of it, right? But from your photographers to your videographers to your DJs to your caterers, like it's a different DJing a Sweet 16 is different than a wedding. Taking boudoir photos is different than shooting a wedding, okay?
Yeah.
Catering for a quinceañera is different than catering for a wedding. Would you agree, Michelle?
I would absolutely agree. Yes. With the food, even we've had experiences where people have gone with different places because they like the food there and they also cater, but they're not like wedding caterers. Like it's just a totally different level of service. um,
And
absolutely.
and to piggyback on what you just said as well, you're, don't think of your wedding as a sporting event, right? Because it's not.
Mhm.
But your vendors are your team, okay?
Yes.
And
Yep.
you want to have the best, okay? And this is why it's also important to book your weddings. Like, no lie, Michelle, I just booked my first wedding for 2025, right?
Yeah.
Weddings are already coming in for 20. So guess what?
Hmm.
Matter of fact, my calendar, Michelle, is almost booked. I only got a few dates left. So I'm gonna come to the bridal show on the 28th, and I'm it happens every year. Gene, we
Hmm.
want you. Unfortunately, I'm not available. Why?
Yeah.
Because I'm getting booked. I'm already on 2025. My calendar is already booked. So you got to start early. But once again, if somebody calls and says, hey, Michelle Myers told me to contact you, I'm going to go above and beyond because we have a relationship, right? And so,
Absolutely.
you know how I work. I know how you work. I love working with
Mhm.
you. And so, even if you call and say, hey, Gene, you know what? My couple's budget is this. Can you work within this budget with me, Gene? Absolutely, Michelle. Come on. But
Yeah.
if the couple contacts me directly, I don't know you. We don't have a
Right.
relationship, right? And so this
Mhm.
is why it's important. I tell all the time, I'm always preaching. And listen, it makes all your other vendors' jobs and it just reduces my stress level when I
Mhm.
know that I'm gonna have a planner that's not a family member on deck at the wedding. So,
Yeah.
Michelle, before I let you go, I want to be respectful of your time. Uh, last words, what is, if there's only one piece of advice you can give a couple regarding budgeting for their wedding in 2024, what is it? And how can couples get in contact with you?
Okay. Well, I would say we are very willing to work with couples at any budget. We're very open, honest, real with you. And like you said, a lot of vendors are willing to work with me and couples on budgetary things. It's that communication and that relationship piece. So I guess the advice would be hire me early and I'll work my magic and help customize your budget. And you can contact me through my website, which is michellesmainevent.com, or my email, which is michelle@michellesmainevent.com. And we can connect. Or you
So
can come to the bridal show.
yes, I was just gonna say we're gonna end with the bridal show, which was really the first tip. If you want to save money, go to
One-stop shop right
one.
there.
You'll
Mhm.
find all your vendors. And Michelle, I think we should do another show talking just about bridal shows and how to really
Okay.
maximize your time at a bridal show, because bridal show season is upon us. Okay.
Yes.
And so
Hmm.
one last thing I also want to say for all my grooms out there, you heard Michelle say 40 G's. Okay. Maybe you could take 5 off 30. I mean, we're gonna say from 30 to 40 G's.
Uh,
Okay. So for all my grooms
uh-huh.
out there, let's just be clear. If you're gonna put a ring on it, she deserves it. If you're gonna take her off the market, okay. If you're gonna put a ring on it, just get ready to do that overtime, because
Mhm.
30 to
Yeah.
40 G's. Okay. So really, for my group, because listen, for my grooms out there, I know what you're thinking. I just want to get her off the market, right? I want to put on it. As a matter of fact, she already has the venue she wants to get married at, bro. I'm telling you, she's already got the whole wedding figured out up here. She just don't know how to
Hmm.
put it together. So she's going to contact Michelle. Before my grooms out there, I'm letting you know right now. You put that ring on it. She don't want to be engaged for 2 years, 3, 4 years. She don't want that. So with that being said, Michelle, always appreciate you being on the show. We've already got 2 more lined up because we got to talk about wedding planning and we got to talk about tips and tricks for bridal shows. Once again, Wedding Workshop Podcast. I'm your host, Gene, the wedding coach, helping engage couples for a fun, entertaining, most importantly, stress-free wedding. Michelle Myers, Michelle's Main Events. Make sure you Google her. All right, Michelle, I appreciate you. And that's
Thanks,
it.
Jean.
Absolutely, we're done.